that's amazing. I mean, if the kids want to learn and if they're curious and they want to grow, then the teachers really encourage that and they just give them the extra stuff. So I think, that's really important. And I was really happy to see that you weren't confined to the lessons that are supposed to be within a particular grade.
Hitherfield School, just outside Milton, Ontario, offers top quality education for kids from preschool to grade 8, with specialized attention, small class sizes, and offerings spanning French, music, and more. Stefanie MacDonald and her family came to Hitherfield after moving to the area and coming from the public system. As she told me, they didn't have their heart set on a private school, but found themselves, after a quick tour, falling in love with Hitherfield's traditions, like its annual May plays and its Harry Potter-style house rivalries. In the end, Stefanie said, what sealed the deal was Hitherfield's beautiful outdoor spaces and their attitude of let's get outside and learn.
Stefanie, so you've got a grade 5 and a grade 2. Would you tell me about each child of yours, who they are as a student?
My grade 2, she turned 8 yesterday. She is a firecracker and a half. From the moment she was born, we raced to the hospital, almost didn't make it, and she hasn't stopped since. She's a bundle of energy. She is the class ham, but she's curious and she's bright and she's excited. And the teachers foster that, which is really, really great to see while keeping her focused at the same time. And they're really great at kind of having conversations with me as to, how they redirect certain energies and that sort of thing, which is great. My son is finishing grade 5 and he is inquisitive about everything to do with animals, life, the climate, you name it, he wants to learn about it. And what I love about this school and the teachers is that they foster that. So he comes home just so excited to share with us everything that he's learned, the things that they're doing. He gets so excited about what they're going to be doing next week or whatever. And so it's nice to see a school that really takes that curiosity and feeds it. So that's something I've been really happy with.
Stefanie, I'm wondering, what was going on in the lives of your children, as students or just as kids, that led you to seek out a new school for them?
Well, we moved from Toronto. We were in Bloor West Village and going to a wonderful school that the kids had started going to when they were in kindergarten, junior kindergarten, that sort of thing. We moved to be closer to family because we moved to Milton in December of last year, so 2019. And so we started looking for a new school. And I was looking at the rankings on the Fraser Institute to see schools that might be highly ranked or close to what the ranking was at the last school that they were at. And I just couldn't find anything in the public school system. Private school was not something that we had particularly been looking for, but my brother is a real estate agent here in Milton and said, listen, there's a private school. Why don't we take a drive over and we'll take a look? And so we pulled up onto the beautiful property with lots of acreage. And we ended up meeting the principal, Anne. And even though the school wasn't open yet, she agreed to give us a tour of the school and of the grounds. So the kids were running and had a great time. We were able to see everything. And at that point, we decided that this is probably going to be a good fit for them. And we signed them up and the rest is history.
So are you saying you had quite an easy process of discovery and decision-making when it came to finding the right school for you?
Yeah, once we got there, I think one of the reasons why we really liked it is that my husband did his elementary school in England, and they have many of the same practices. So they'll have different houses and they'll have a house captain and those types of things. And so Anne was describing these things. My husband was nodding and smiling, saying, this is what I was used to. And it also, there's a little bit of similarity to Harry Potter, which is what my son loved, in that, you know, each of the house cheers for one another. They all wear the school colors, their house colors. There's a house captain. There's a process where they vote for who the house captain is and those types of things. So I loved that because it fostered leadership. And I think that's really important, to have those skills going into your adult life, and into your high school and your university life. So to foster those types of things early on, I was really happy about. And so it just seemed kind of like a natural fit, and you know, and it was.
Stefanie, I'm wondering if you could paint a picture for me. You know, we're walking up to Hitherfield. We're just entering the campus. What are we seeing? What's the place like?
It's up on a hill, so you go down, you go up a very long and weavy driveway, and then you come to the school, which is I think it's on something like 18 acres of land or something like that. And so they do encourage lots of outdoor physical activity time, which is something that is really important, I think, for children, especially this age, especially boys, and kids who have tons and tons of energy. So you know, you'll see some play equipment and that sort of thing, but in the winter time, for example, all the parents bring cross-country skis, and the students spend hours going through the fields and the trails on their cross-country skis. So they'll have races through there, and that's where phys ed happens on a regular basis. So, you know, to see it's out in the middle of the country, you can't hear any traffic, there's trees and wildlife everywhere. And on the way up to the school, you pass a pond where often science class will happen, or they'll have their lunches on a picnic table by the pond. If they're doing a science class and maybe they're studying, I don't know, frogs or wildlife, they can physically go down and see what it is that they're studying. And that's something that I loved. I think we spend so much time indoors and sitting, and we're a very active family. So that spoke to me right away. And I think it's important that kids be involved in those things from the very beginning, because, you know, we all work much better once we've been able to have fresh air and exercise. And that seems to be a mandate at Hitherfield.
As far as you know, an educational philosophy and approach to curriculum, things that happen in the classroom, what was it that first stood out to you about the way things happen at Hitherfield?
That's one of my favorite things, to be honest. So both of my children were in French immersion before, and so I was worried about pulling them out, especially my son, who was going into grade 4 last year, or halfway through the year. I was worried about the fact that we were pulling them out of a full French curriculum and putting them into English. So I knew that his language skills, his spelling, those types of things might be a little bit behind, but I knew that his French would be significantly more advanced than the other kids. So what they said was, we don't teach at the level that you're supposed to be in. So if he's in grade 4, but he has advanced skills, we'll teach and foster that, so that if he's, you know, excelling in French, then, and he is at a grade 8 level, then we'll teach him at a grade 8 level. If he is maybe at a grade 3 level for spelling, we'll teach him at the grade 3 level, and we'll bring him up to where he's supposed to be. So that you're not constrained by the grade that you're supposed to be in. If you are falling behind, then they'll help the kids to bring them back where they're supposed to be. But if they're showing that they can take on more, then they will give them more. And I think I was just really happy and impressed with that. So even though Grayson right now is in grade 5, he's doing grade 6 math. And last year, at the end of the year, he was doing grade 5 math. Some of the kids that graduated with grade 9 credits last year. So I think that's amazing. I mean, if the kids want to learn, and if they're curious and they want to grow, then the teachers really encourage that, and they just give them the extra stuff. So I think, you know, that's really important. And I was really happy to see that you weren't confined to the lessons that are supposed to be within a particular grade. So all the kids have different tests when they're doing their quizzes and their tests, they're all different. And I think that's amazing.
You know, obviously this is a very special and unique year. You know, we're speaking in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah.
But thinking back to where you were this time last year, you know, at end of the school year, and looking back on the progress your son and daughter had made, tell me about that contrast.
Well, yes, there are significant changes between this year and last year. I would say probably one of the most disappointing things is that every year they do a huge whole school production called May Plays, where every single child is involved in the play in some capacity or another. And the kids look forward to that all year. So the parents volunteer for makeup or costumes or whatever that is. And the kids practice it basically from the time they get back from March break until May. And so we were, just finishing the May Plays at this stage last year. The kids were on a high. They had been on stage in front of all the parents for, 3 days at a time. So that's where we would have been this time last year. This year, I just really wasn't sure how they were going to go about making sure that the kids were still engaged and keeping lessons going during a global pandemic. But when I compare the lessons and the experience that my children have had compared to the public school system, I mean, it's not even comparable. It is like apples and oranges. So every day they have Zoom calls, they have a schedule, they have a daily read, they submit their work, they upload it to a Google document or shared file, and it's like nothing changed. I mean, obviously things have changed, and they can't get the same type of education that they might get in a face-to-face environment. But I've loved being able to hear the way the teachers interact with them. It also helps because there's usually only 8 to 10 kids in a class. So that's a lot easier than having 30 kids in a class. It's a significant change. But just listening to the way that the teachers teach and the patience that they have, I'm just blown away. And I'll give you one example. The other week, my son came bursting out of his bedroom and said, "You're never going to believe it. We're going on a virtual field trip." And I said, "What do you mean?" So his teacher had driven up north, had gone to a conservation area, and we're taking the kids on a virtual field trip with his phone, explaining all the different plant forms he was seeing, all the different animals, the environment in which they live, and he just carried them along with them. The following week, he got in a canoe and took the kids down the river in the canoe. So, they have a way of allowing the kids to still be engaged with the classes, even though they're not physically there, which is something I just think is amazing.
Thinking back to where you were as that parent who was just touring Hitherfield, just checking it out for the first time, tell me something that stands out to you now that you value about Hitherfield that wasn't apparent yet when you were just checking it out. How is what's apparent on the cover of the book different from what you find inside the pages?
Well, everyone's going to make it look like it's the best thing ever when you're looking at the pages. But when you actually step inside and you experience that family feeling, and when you see how much the teachers love getting involved with the kids, and I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that in a public school system you're not going to have that, but I think that without the constraints of a union or something like that, they can just really do whatever they want to, and they genuinely care for each of the kids. They want to see them do well. The encouragement, it's a small school. I think there's only about 85 kids in the entire school from junior kindergarten to grade 8. But because of that, they really do feel like a family. And so when you walk into that school, it doesn't matter which teacher you see, it's somebody that and I really do feel like I have a great relationship with the teachers that are part of my kids' lives.
Now let's put on a different hat for a moment. We're not here just to pump the tires of Hitherfield. We're not here just to make it look good. We're trying to take a critical look and think about things in a way that evaluating what matters to that parent who's making that big decision. So, what would be an example of something that if we flick the switch and put you in charge of Hitherfield tomorrow, what would you work on?
Well, last year I did find that there were a couple of things, field trips and that sort of thing, which seemed to me to be a little unorganized. But that seems to have changed this year, which I'm very happy to see. I don't know if that they got, parent feedback or whatever it was, but things seem to be running a little bit smoother this year than they did last year. And I would say, I think there's pros and cons to a very small school and only having maybe 10 kids in the classroom. So in some ways that's great. It allows the teachers to really, teach at the level of the children and turn on a dime if need be. But on the flip side, from a child's perspective, if you have a falling out with a couple of your friends, it's harder to now go and join another group because that's all there is, so it means you need to go to a different grade or you need to figure things out. But that said, that also teaches them conflict resolution. And that is a very important trait to learn. And it's something that you have to use constantly when you are in a work environment and perhaps you're on a team or you have a client or whatever that you might not see eye to eye with. So I would say there's pros and cons to it. But certainly nothing that I would think, oh, I don't like that.
Were there any other schools that you looked at along with Hitherfield?
No other private schools. We looked at a couple of public schools and I just didn't get the right feeling from it. And I don't know if that is because of the school, because it was not very highly ranked on the Fraser Institute, or if it's because I loved the school we came from. But the minute that we walked into Hitherfield and we got that tour and we saw the grounds and, the kids started to get excited, we knew it was a fit.
What do people normally ask you about? Like if another parent comes up and says, oh, your kids go to Hitherfield. What's that conversation normally about?
Yeah, they'll say, oh, your kids go to Hitherfield. Do you like it? And then I talk about these things. Now, during this period of time, the COVID and the lessons and that sort of thing, I mean, I kind of feel badly because I go on and on about how impressed I've been with their ability to engage the kids, especially when you're trying to work from home. I mean, if I were in a public school, my kids would literally not have school from March onwards, because I don't know how any parent has been able to work from home and still allow their children to learn. And as we speak right now, they're on their Zoom calls with their teachers so that I can do this. So, so a lot of, it's been almost uncomfortable because I feel like I'm bragging right now. But yeah, no, the conversations are usually, oh, I know somebody who goes there, because Milton is a small town. It's a small community. And usually it's, oh, I know another family that goes to there and they really like it. So.
If you could pick up the phone, Stefanie, and call yourself, at the outset of this process, when you were just starting to wrap your head around, okay, we need to find a new school, I need to think about this, I need to prioritize that. What would you tell that Stefanie, and what was that Stefanie thinking at the time?
Oh my gosh, Stefanie was in a complete and utter tizzy. That Stefanie was moving from a neighborhood in Toronto that she loved. When we bought our house here in Milton, I think they accepted the offer, and then my husband and I said, oh my God, what did we just do? And we literally turned our lives upside down. And yes, you know what? There are reasons why we moved here. It's nice to be closer to family. It's nice to be closer to my my nieces and nephews. Our life has changed. You know, we're into horseback riding. The kids are into go-kart racing. Like I never, ever in a million years would have thought that was what our life was going to be about. So I would probably say to that, Stefanie, everything's going to be okay. I know you feel like your world is upside down, and yes, it will take a few months for you to feel like you can exhale, but you are going to exhale and you're going to smile again. And you don't have to worry. You're going to find an amazing school. You're going to find an amazing group of people, and your life is going to be better for it.
When you found Hitherfield, was there a parent community that comes with it?
I would kind of. I think because the school is so small, you do get to know the other parents. And they do have different events. So you start to see the other parents here and there and that sort of thing. One thing I do find weird is they don't give you a class list with all the, so I mean at previous schools, you would get a class list with all the kids' names on it, their parents' names and a contact, like an email or whatever. And then if you decided you don't want to be on that, then you're not on that. They don't provide that at Hitherfield. So I think that is something that I found very difficult at first, because we literally had to go back to old school invitations for birthday parties and that sort of thing, where the kids bring it in and then they pass it out rather than just doing an evite. And I'm not sure why they don't do that. It's something I might actually address with them now that I feel more comfortable with the staff at the school. Whereas when I was first starting out, I didn't really want to start ruffling feathers, but I'll ruffle feathers now.
You've mentioned the staff at the school or your relationship with teachers before. Could you tell me more about the intangible things? Maybe it's relationships or culture or values, all kinds of intangible things that enhance or impact your relationship with Hitherfield.
Let me think. I would say it's probably easier now. So because Hitherfield is kind of in the country, my brother was dropping the kids off in the morning originally, and then they started taking the bus. So unless I was going to pick something up or I was working from home that day or something like that, it was difficult at first to kind of even get to know the teachers well, because I think 80% of the kids are bused there. But as I've become more comfortable with it, and then they also ask you to volunteer for certain things. So what they do is they have like a point system, and you have to earn 5 points or something throughout the year. And at the end of the year, if you haven't done your volunteer thing or whatever, then you pay, I don't know, $200 or something that goes towards the school. So I've done quite a few volunteer things there. I went and did a career day and that sort of thing. So by doing those things, the teachers come up and then they start talking to you about certain things and whatnot. So that's really helped. And also now that they're doing all their Zoom calls, you know, if there's a problem or something, my face just comes into the thing and they say, oh, hi, how are you? What's happening? So I can address the issues like that. They also use something called a Remind app, and it allows you to text directly to the teachers. So if you have a question or if there's an issue or anything like that, I know my daughter's teacher now, she's in her early 20s, I think, or mid 20s. So she's very technology savvy. She'll respond within an hour. So it's very easy to get in touch with them. And some of the other teachers, now that we're in this COVID situation, have also started using the Remind app. So it's easier that way as well to be able to correspond with them.
Is there a common thread that runs through your relationships with staff and teachers at Hitherfield, as far as, maybe there's something that you see they're trying to deliberately create and who works there and what the culture of the school is academically?
I don't know if it's something that I would genuinely be able to pick up on. But what I have noticed about the teachers that I have been, directly involved with, is that they truly care about what they do. They genuinely, you can tell, love their jobs. In fact, I was listening in on one of the calls, and there was in my daughter's class, and there was this little boy who had quite a significant, not a lisp, but just an adorable way of expressing himself and whatever it was. And I think, Mia, the teacher, saw me smiling in the background, and she started to laugh. And I said, "I'm sorry, that is the cutest thing I've ever heard." And she said, "I know, I love my job." And I think it's just, you can just tell that they, the fact that my son's teacher recognized that the kids cannot go to certain conservation areas and whatnot because they're closed. So he went for them and he let them experience that. I don't think you find a lot of teachers that are able to do that, and even if they want to do that, they can't, because of the environment in which they work.
Looking ahead now, what do the years ahead at Hitherfield look like for your kids?
I think Hitherfield has given them a confidence about their abilities, about leadership. And, we also encourage that. And so I think that my son will probably next year go out for house captain. He was a little intimidated to do that this year. I suspect he probably will do that, and that will teach him that he has the leadership abilities to do that, and the courage to be able to do that. I think my daughter will probably get pretty heavily into drama, and will probably have a prominent position in the May plays eventually. Maybe not at 8 years old, but certainly at 11. And I think that they will come out of Hitherfield feeling like things might be a little bit scary to put your name forward for and to try out for and to do, but they've done it before and they will be able to be successful in the future. So not to hold back.
How has your experience at Hitherfield changed what you'll look for next as your kids grow up and leave Hitherfield?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I grew up, I went to a public school. I went to a public elementary school as well as a public high school. And my brother went to a private school. So he went to boarding school, and that's kind of because he got into some trouble, and he needed a heavy hand straightening him out, and ended up graduating with honors, and the rest is history as far as that's concerned. But I was always very much, I didn't think that my kids would need a private school, and I kind of thought that was just, I almost didn't want them to go to a private school because I wanted them to understand that not everybody has what they have, and I wanted them to see that there are different levels on the not everybody is as lucky as them, and I really wanted them to experience that. But after my experience at Hitherfield, I am rethinking that. And I'm thinking that maybe the way we show them that is through volunteering and helping different families and doing some different things, because I don't ever want to have to worry about my son not being able to get his credits because the teachers have gone on strike or because the government doesn't support them or whatever it is. And at this stage, because I'm paying for the education, I know that I'm going to get what is required. And so especially going into high school, it's something, I think I'm really looking at the private school route because of that, because I want them to get the education that they deserve. And I know that sounds a little bit political, but I think it's just a reality. And, the only choice the teachers have is to strike when a government doesn't support what they need. So, it's a double-edged sword, but really who ends up suffering throughout this whole thing are the kids.
Stefanie, would you, in a few words of your own, summarize what Hitherfield stands for?
family. You really do get a sense of family and community. They genuinely care about seeing the kids succeed. You're always greeted with a smile when you go in. And just to see, there's been a couple of times where I've hung back when they have started certain things, and just watching my kids grow and flourish, and it's a great thing to see. And I'm really happy that we made this choice.
And finally, before I let you go, just to summarize things for us, I was wondering if you could, do some ranking, do some critical analysis for us that way. Rank for me the 3 things that you would work on, improve, things at Hitherfield that you would work on, improve, and as well as the 3 things that you value most about Hitherfield that make it a special place for you and your family.
Okay, so the 3 things that I improve would probably be organization when it comes to field trips, and communication when it comes to field trips and those types of things. That's an area that I have seen some improvement on this year, but I would like to see a little bit more. But I do think that us being forced to keep in touch remotely during COVID-19 will help the school with that in the future. So, I'm hopeful about that. And I would like to see them work on their French program a little bit. And so I think that my son is probably being challenged, but not challenged enough. And even though I have brought that up with the French teacher, I was not overly happy with her response. So next year I will probably have a sit down with the school and talk about that. He's not being challenged to where I am happy with. As far as the things I like about the school, I love their focus on outdoor exercise. And, my kids were so excited. Apparently last year they were in the middle of science class and it was snowing, like Christmas snow coming outside. And the science teacher looked outside and looked at the class and said, "Let's go skiing." And the whole class picked up and went skiing for the next hour. Because there's only 10 kids in the class, you can do that. And so I really like that. I love the sense of family. I love the accountability as well. So if the kids forget something, they'll say, "Well, my mom didn't put it in my backpack." And the response will be, "But it's not your mom's responsibility to make sure that you bring the things that you were told to bring yesterday." So that excuse doesn't fly there. So what I noticed right away is that my son would come home and say, "You really need to do this," or "I really need to do that. I really need to make sure that I get my stuff together." And there was an accountability that, even with my 7, now 8-year-old, in making sure that she had all of the things that she needed, because it's not like they can just call me and I can run it over like I could before.
Cool.
Yeah.
Stefanie, is there anything that I haven't asked that I really ought to? Anything else that's on your radar that's important for us to say about Hitherfield and what makes it an important, special place for your kids?
Let me just give me some thought for a second. I would say that if you are a parent and you are looking at Hitherfield School and you're trying to make the determination as to whether or not it's right for you, it is not a fits all type of a thing. It's one of those places that you need to go, you need to experience it, and you need to determine whether or not, very small class sizes work for you. It doesn't necessarily work for everybody. And as I said, being in a small school, has its pros and cons. For our family, it is a pro, and it is something that I'm very happy about. But I would say, go and you visit, and be very open with the staff, and figure out if that works for you. For us, it works.